Hello and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most subjective 49ers discussion and analysis. And today we're going to recap the 49ers' heartbreaking and disgusting 24-23 loss to the Arizona Cardinals, discussing how the hell did this happen again. We're talking turnovers. We're talking new special teams issues, red zone offense being bad, the offense being shut out in the second half. If Kyle is enamored with Brock and the downfield passing game, both running games for Arizona and San Francisco, some odd defensive choices by Nick Sorensen, then reasons for pessimism, which there's a lot, and reasons for optimism, which there are some, before we get into previewing the 49ers going to Seattle on Thursday night. It's not good. A lot of it's bad, but let's get right into it. So I posed the question in the intro, how the hell did this happen again? Meaning the Rams game, blowing a 14-point lead, blowing a 2-score lead late. I mean, we know it's happened in the Super Bowl, both Super Bowls. Granted, it was a 10-point lead in the first half most recently, 10-point lead in the fourth quarter the first time they played the Chiefs. Shanahan's record with being up 10 in the fourth quarter is still stellar. I don't know the exact number, but it is a ridiculously high record in his favor. Unfortunately, the ones that we remember, obviously, are the big games like the Super Bowl, the Falcons Super Bowl when he was the OC there, and losses, especially this season. This game, guys, I don't know about you, but just felt just like the Rams game. I felt like I was being lulled to sleep. Not specifically, but they got ahead of Arizona after, the Cardinals scored on that first touchdown, that read option that Murray took 50 yards to the house. Niners respond with a field goal. Then it's 10-7. They get up, 20-10, 23-10 at the half. And it felt like, all right, ho-hum. They put up 23. They'll probably put up another 10 at least and get into the 30s and beat Arizona. And we know that wasn't the case. And as much as the players and Kyle Shanahan literally said, we need to turn the page and move on to Seattle because it's a short week for them and they need to prepare. I don't need to. Well, I did some preparation for Seattle. I'm not a player or a coach, but to talk about the game on Thursday, yeah, I want to turn the page too because that was disgusting and disappointing. But let's flip through this book a little bit because we'll dive into how disgusting it was and what the possibilities for correction are. Let's just start up top. You lose the turnover battle, you're probably going to lose the game. It was 3-1 loss for San Francisco, 2 interceptions by Brock, a costly fumble by Mason, one for Arizona, which was the interception that Bosa had on Kyler Murray. Defensively, now this necessarily isn't a turnover, but third down defense, which has been bad for the 49ers outside of last week against New England, was good again this week. Arizona was 3 for 10 on third down. That's 33%. 1 for 1 on fourth down at the end of the game. That little Hail Mary off his back foot that Murray put up for Marvin Harrison Jr. So 4 for 11 on third or fourth down. That is a good percentage where the Niners want to be. And the Niners themselves on third down offensively were 6 for 10. They won the time of possession battle by about 6 minutes, had more first downs, had about 30 more yards. If you want to ask how the hell did they lose this game, we're going to go through all the things, but turnovers, big. And if you get shut out in the second half, I don't know how many games you're actually going to win. But before we get into the offense, just when you thought you saw everything on special teams from San Francisco, new special team shit reared its head after the Niners got the Bosa interception to make it, and they only got a field goal out of that drive to make it 20-10. Nick Moody gets hurt on a kickoff return tackle. Now, couple things there. It's unfortunate that Moody didn't boot it deep enough into the end zone that, the returner would take a knee. The fact that Moody got bent over on that tackle, the fact that he, made the tackle or at least slowed the returner down was fantastic. But again, that was still a decent enough return that the front line of the 49ers kick coverage unit could not get the returner down. Moody steps up as he should. He shouldn't really, just Olay. You remember the movie Major League, Roger Dorn, and let the kick returner go. But he's not someone that tackles obviously a lot or has the correct tackling form. He did what he needed to do to slow down the returner. It's unfortunate that his kicking leg got bent back. He has a high ankle sprain. He'll be out for a couple of weeks. It remains to be seen. He'll probably be put on IR. And the Niners, as of this recording on Tuesday morning, are working out, I think, 4 kickers, but they haven't released the names yet, or at least I haven't seen them. They'll probably have a kicker, or they need to have a kicker signed sometime before end of day today, Tuesday. So Mitch Wishnowsky comes in, hits a field goal at the end of the half with Kyle Juszczyk holding, but the Niners cannot get close enough the remainder of the game for another attempt, and one drive was specifically on Brock, and we're going to get to that. 23-10, San Francisco at the half in firm and full control, right? Well, sort of. Let's rewind a little bit. Issue number 3, red zone offense. Bad all year, right? Bad all year. 6 trips into the red zone all game, 1 touchdown, 3 field goals, 1 fumble, a turnover on downs, and a partridge in a pear tree. 2 things, or maybe 3 things in red zone offense, but the third thing is going to apply to the offense in general. Can we stop with the goddamn shotgun formations and pass plays inside the 10, but most specifically inside the 5? I'm not saying it never works. That would be too absolute. But to that point in the game, Mason hadn't fumbled, and he is top 2-3 running back in the league in terms of rushing yards. You're at 3rd down and 2 from the 2, 3rd and goal from the 2. And you don't play power football, you don't hand it to Mason or Guerendo, who's a big back, or that quick inside, fullback dive to Juszczyk, knowing that if you get a yard, you'll probably go for it on 4th down with a sneak or another run. Instead, a shotgun pass. No, I don't know if there was pressure on Purdy that play. That might have been a play where he actually did throw it away. But Kyle is still, and we're going to get into this, his fascination with the passing game. You're that close. You have a line that was run blocking well. I mean, the Niners did run for over, I think, like 130 yards, and Mason had over 5 yards a carry. You needed 2 yards. You essentially had 2 attempts, and you shy away from what should be the identity of your team. If you hear Tom Brady and other announcers talk about it, when they talk to other teams and coaches, and the perception around the league is being a physical football team. That's not just defensively, although the way they've been playing defensively, you could say maybe they're physical, they're just not smart, and they're just not closers. But physicality needs to happen on the offensive line. Physicality needs to happen when you need a yard or 2 on 3rd or 4th down. You get it. You're inside the 3 or at the 2. You're certainly inside the 5. Run the goddamn ball, especially you're a team that plays with a fullback. So you're going to have a lead blocker and probably Kittle or Saubert, kicking around if it's a run to a certain side of the line. Instead, they're throwing shotgun. And I know the most famous shotgun inside the 5 throw was Russell Wilson's interception in the Super Bowl against the Patriots to Malcolm Butler, which was, again, dumb when you have Marshawn Lynch, and dumb when you have Marshawn Lynch Jr. on the 49ers. Can we get back to power football when needed? And can we get back to play action, right? Jimmy, Brock, I'm not putting them in the same category. They are not in the same category, but teams that run the ball well, and San Francisco does, benefits from a strong or consistent play action game. Check out these stats. Brock's first year, which is, again, like half the season, thereabouts. And this may include the postseason as well. 2022, the 49ers ran play action 27% of the time. Last year, 23% of the time. This year, 17% of the time. Why? That's a 10% drop from 2022 to 2024 to this year, right? 27% to 10%. It might not be exactly when you calculate it out because there could be different numbers of attempts, but proportionally, right, it's a 10% difference. Meaning, if you throw the ball 300 times a game, I'm sorry, oh God. Well, Kyle would love to, right? 300 times in a season, that's 30 less play action passes a season, which could, if you want to round it up or down, depending on how you're looking at it, 2 less play action passes per game. This is a team that loves to run the ball. Well, they didn't love to run the ball enough against Arizona. We're going to talk about that. Teams know they like to run the ball, mainly with Mason, not so much with Garendo, a little bit with Debo. And we'll see when McCaffrey comes back, hopefully in a couple of weeks, but again, probably after the bye, unless they lose to Seattle, which maybe you can then see McCaffrey, we'll use air quotes here, right, pushing himself to come back for the Chief game. Because the Chiefs, with all their injuries, they're 5-0, but they can be had. The Niners would just have to play a near perfect game, the way their defense looks currently, to do it. But again, the decline in play action pass, 27%, 23%, 17%. I don't know the reason why. I'm going to assume one of the reasons why is in 2 points from now, the drop back passing game. But that is a trend that could have given San Francisco and Brock a few more easy throws. He was over 50% on the day. Obviously had the 2 interceptions. One was a tip. One was when he got hit. You don't really want to put the tip on Brock. That was a good play by the D lineman. The last drive, Brock should have felt the pressure or not should have looked so far downfield, should have checked it down. We're going to get there momentarily. More play action, more power football, more running the ball. Kyle, it's a trend. When you are up 14, you should be looking to gain some yards and kill some clock. I understand you want to pile on points because stretching a 2-score lead to a 3-score lead makes it even more difficult for a team to come back. However, you could also do it from a 2nd and 6 versus a 2nd and 10. A reduction in play action over the past 2 seasons, or 3 seasons, I guess technically, is completely contrary to the type of football that we associate the 49ers playing. And if that's the case, that means that there is an offensive philosophical shift or nuance that, again, we're going to get into in 2 points. This first point, it's not even a point, it's a fact. The offense was shut out in the second half. Beyond that, the offense scored only 17 points on offense. Remember, 1 was the blocked field goal in the second quarter that netted them a touchdown. So 17 points, 1 touchdown, 3 field goals, 2 by Moody and 1 by Wishnowsky. And again, I'm going to go back to the question I started with. What the hell is that? What the hell is 23 total points, 7 on a blocked field goal, 17 total by your offense against a team that's in the bottom third of the league, bottom quarter on defense, and a team that the Commanders put up 40-plus points the week before? You want to say Washington's offense is more explosive than San Francisco's? Jaden Daniel having a really good rookie year, can run, can pass. Their offensive receivers outside of Terry McLaurin, are they really scaring you or anybody? No. But they're finding ways to be explosive. And it's interesting. The Niners do have a lot, like they're leading the league or top 2 in explosive plays, pass yards of 20 or more, and rushing plays of 10 yards or more. But doesn't it feel like when you watch other teams feel more explosive than San Francisco, feel more dynamic, pushing the ball downfield, getting even bigger plays, like maybe a 3-play drive, hitting one over the top for 40 yards. And Brock pushed the ball downfield a lot against New England, which I think came back to bite the offense here against Arizona. But I'll ask the question again, what the hell was going on with the offense overall and in the second half? You're up 23-10. to start the second half, you force Arizona, their first possession, to go 3 and out. 3 plays, 1 yard gained. Good job, defense. A lot of people are going to want to pile on Nick Sorensen, and it's low-hanging fruit. But I think, in a way, he and the defense, outside of, couldn't stop John Quanner in the fourth quarter, we're going to get there, probably did as well as they could with the offense consistently hanging them out to dry. Hot ass day, wore their red uniforms. Niners, the NFL would not allow the Niners to wear white, whereas the Cowboys wear white every goddamn home game they have, right? And there is gamesmanship involved, because of the heat, but maybe, and I didn't read the reason why, so I don't want to, but maybe it's because the Niners decided they earmarked this game to wear their throwbacks. And I'm going to throw back to 1994, the jerseys with the black outline when they won the Super Bowl. Perhaps that's why, because they had that nailed down. But the defense wore down in the second half. And that's been an MO of the Niners defense for the past couple years. And generally a lot of defenses over time. It's still interesting that offenses could get stronger as the game goes on, but defenses wear down. And I know there's like a mental aspect of when an offense is exerting its will, it kind of crushes your soul and just is really disheartening when you can move the ball on the ground or pass or mix it up and the defense can't stop you. I get it. A lot of stars on this defense, a lot of big names on the back of the jersey that are not matching up to the production. And again, the individual parts are not greater than the whole, which is a problem. But stop Arizona, first drive in the second half, get the ball. Brock throws an interception that was tipped at the line. Okay. Second game in a row where the 49ers' first drive in the second half resulted in a turnover. Last week against New England, it was Guerrero fumbling on the kick return. Quite literally the first play of that drive. And Brock throwing that interception where I think he was looking for Kittle and the D lineman got their hand up. Sometimes you just tip your cap and say, good play defense. Not everything. As much as everyone wants to say, well, Brock can't throw that, or how could he get tipped, or Brock should have looked somewhere else. Guys, sometimes the other team makes a good fucking play. It's not always that the Niners have to make the better play every single goddamn time. Even though Arizona is a bottom third, bottom quarter defense, they're allowed to make plays. And they started making plays at the beginning of the game where they were challenging San Francisco's receivers. Just had to turn the ticker on. I realized it wasn't on for those of you who want to follow along about what I'm talking about. Fortunately, we're early enough. We're just into the third talking point. Offense being shut out in the second half. Sorry about that. But then, so Arizona gets the ball in 49er territory, and the defense holds them to a field goal, 3 plays, 1 yard again. So 23-13, up 10. Arizona's first 2 drives in the third quarter net 2 yards. Before you want to get the pitchforks out for Sorensen, understand that to this point, the Cardinals have had 2 field goals and 1, if you want to call it a broken play on that Kyler Murray read option where Hufanga crashed down way too hard. Did not realize that he was going to keep it. Bosa crashed down on the running back, and it was an easy run for Kyler Murray. That's just discipline, and Hufanga plays out of control sometimes. Yes, he's had that one all-pro season, and he's a very good player, but takes bad angles tackling, over pursues, isn't great in coverage, and is a bit reckless. He's like a heat-seeking missile. People want to compare him to Troy Polamalu only because of the long hair. He doesn't have the discipline of Troy Polamalu. Still a very good player, working his way back from the ACL reconstruction. I get it, and left this game with a hand injury. So he's questionable for the Seattle game. But he's a player that I can see the 49ers letting walk, given how much he may cost. And he doesn't necessarily or consistently play like an all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber player. Plus, Jair Brown, Malik Mustafa, George Odom as your third safety. I'm sure they'll bring in another veteran or draft another safety in the offseason. All right, so first drive's a interception. Second drive, they get to the Arizona 13, up 10. False start in Juwan Jennings. So now it's second down, I think, or I forgot what the second down, the down and distance was, but a false start backs him up to the 18. Then Brock takes that running around behind the line of scrimmage, trying to do something, takes a sack for 9 yards. Now you're at the Arizona 27 on fourth down. You're not kicking a 45-yard field goal with Mitch Wisnowski. So they try a pass to Kittle that gets knocked away. Arizona takes over, turnover on downs. Without Brock's 9-yard sack, if he just got rid of the ball quickly or decided to, again, run up the goddamn field. And I am not piling on Brock. I've said it in other podcasts and other videos. If you guys have watched, it is commendable that he keeps plays alive and continues to look downfield for his playmakers. But I said last week, at some point, it's going to come bite him and the team in the ass. And this was the moment. Because if he had just thrown the ball away and they gained no yards on third down, they would have had the ball at the Arizona 18. Maybe you try a 36-yarder with Wisnowski. It's a little more than an actual extra point, right? Wisnowski's first field goal came from the 10-yard line. So it was an old extra point. Maybe they try it to get up by 13 again. We will never know. Live to, and Brock's mentality is, if I keep the play alive, I'm living to fight not only another play, but this play. I'm living to keep fighting for this play. He is never going to be a 1, 2, or 3 read quarterback and just go. He'll never be a 1 read or 2 read quarterback and just run. You get to that third read and it's not there, take off. And if it means he's got 10 runs a game, as long as he's smart with it and slides and gets down, I would be okay with that. The risk reward of the running around stuff, we haven't seen as much reward. And as fun as him running across the field and running back and gaining 3 yards, if you're going to run that much for 3 yards, run a whole lot less. Step back after 3-4 seconds, no one's open, go. And you get your 4 yards that way. Third drive. First and goal at the 8, Mason fumbles. Now, it's unfortunate. He was fighting for extra yards, right? The Niners are up 23-21 at this point. And people are going to jump on Mason, and rightfully so. It's his, first or second fumble on the year, maybe his first lost fumble. I'd have to go back and check the stats. But a bad time, an area on the field to fumble, because even if they gain nothing from the 8, it's a 26-yard field goal, which should be makeable for Wisnowski. But for people to say, well, the Niners were going to ice the game and that's on Mason, they would have been up by 8, maybe 9 if Wisnowski makes that long field goal. And who knows, they might have went for 2, thinking that they have a better chance to convert a 2-point conversion than Wisnowski to convert an extra point. I don't know, right? But being up 23-21 at the time before the fumble, at that point, they were 5 offensive trips into the red zone, 1 touchdown. Where's the confidence that they were going to score a touchdown there, guys? Correct. Mathematically, a touchdown and some sort of conversion, a 1 or 2, ices the game. But they're 20% on the game red zone touchdown conversion percentage. Did we feel great that was going to happen? Now, a field goal would have forced Arizona to get into the end zone, which the way that the Niners defense was wearing down, plus Arizona going to 4 downs every drive if they needed it. Do we think the Niners would have stopped them? There's a lot of maybes and what ifs that are going on here. All we do know, Mason fumbled and the Niners couldn't get a stop and couldn't get into field goal range before Brock got picked. Fourth drive, Brock is hit, interception at midfield. This is not on Mason. It's not on the O-line. This one's on Brock. Brock has got to get rid of the ball earlier. They brought 6. The offensive linemen, or they might have, I think they brought 6. Offensive lineman picked up who they had to. Mason had 2 free rushers. He picked up the inside rusher, what you have to do. Brock is looking left the whole time, and he said, I was trying to push it downfield to Aiyuk. There's your key phrase. I was trying to push it downfield. There was a minute and a half or minute 15 to go in the game, and they're at their own 40. So they need like 40 yards for a realistic field goal attempt. But Kittle was wide open underneath. And Kittle, I thought, was going to maybe make a play and knock the ball away, but instead it was intercepted by Arizona. Dump it off. Dump it off. We're gonna get into that in a second. So that one was on Brock. He needed to get off of Aiyuk sooner or look short to long. And if that short thing popped immediately, which Kittle did, get rid of it. Let him rumble. He would have gotten over midfield, maybe to the 45. You spike the ball. You're under a minute to go. And now you need maybe 25 yards, 30 yards for a realistic field goal attempt. You didn't need everything. You didn't need a 30-yard chunk right there, with a minute 20 left. And here's Arizona in the second half, right? Punt, field goal, touchdown, a drive of 12 plays for 73 yards, and the game-winning field goal drive, 14 plays for 75 yards. Defense did not close. Played well in the first half. Played well in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, ran out of steam. Heat, understandable. Happens to defenses, understandable. Seems to happen to the 49ers more than it should for the talent that's on this team. They need to close the door defensively, but it's not all on them. You can't get shut out in the second half against an Arizona team that's not good. That's bad. Middling offensively, pretty good running game, and they proved it against San Francisco. But defensively, not good, but schemed the Niners up well enough, we're going to get into it in a few minutes, that it gave San Francisco some problems early. Playing man and playing aggressive. That first drive that the Niners went 3 and out. Could not get John Connor on the ground. Could not get Arizona off the field. The last 2 drives, 12 for 73 yards, 14 for 75 yards. Now, here's the point that I was teasing about, for a little while about passing. We're talking about play action passes in the drop back game. Is Kyle getting enamored with Brock's passing or passing ability or gunslinger mentality, whatever you want to call it? This game, 5 straight passes to start the game. 3 and out, plus 2 straight passes on the next drive. Remember the Super Bowl against the Chiefs in the second half? They're up 10-3. They get an immediate interception of Patrick Mahomes, courtesy of Jair Brown. 3 straight passes, punt, next drive, 3 straight passes, they lose. You're a running team, Kyle, and that doesn't mean you run the ball 40 times and you pass it 20 times, but the magic formula is over 30, getting maybe to 35 runs and around or just less than 30 passes. Statistically, it bears out. That's how you win. You've come out and said it, that you want to run the ball 35 times. If you want to say the heat slowed you down from running the ball, we're going to get into maybe one of the reasons why in a little bit, but it feels like, and you heard Brady say it, it feels like he was seeing way more drop back passing game from Brock and the Niners this game and watching tape than he was anticipating. And a lot of it is out of shotgun. Doesn't mean you can't run the ball out of shotgun. Doesn't mean you can't run play action out of shotgun. It was rare, but especially when you're flexing Mason out wide and just have that play where he just stands there and doesn't run a route. Defenses pretty much know that a pass is coming. And the O-line, to their credit, did a good job. They kept Brock clean and upright basically all game. And Brock did, some of the running around, stuff to help him buy time. But that sack, that 9-yard loss was on Brock that took them out of potentially Wisnowski's field goal range earlier in the game. Brock overall 19 of 35, so a little over 50%, 244, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Is this team looking to push the ball downfield too much? It worked last week against New England. And again, you can make mistakes or you can survive mistakes against a team offensively that's as bad as New England was and is, right? Didn't they just lose 15-10 to the Patriots on Sunday? To the Dolphins, excuse me. But isn't this still a West Coast offense? Isn't this still a yak offense? And the Niners are what? Dead last in the league this year or close to it in yards after the catch. And Brock's air yards per attempt is nearly leading the league. Those two in a way are correlated. If you're throwing downfield more, then they're not getting the downfield throws where, they're throwing a bomb, catching it at the opponent's 30 and running the other 30 yards in, for a touchdown. Ayuk had one on that out to start the game where he kind of faked inside, went up the sideline, got a nice block from Kittle. I think that was what the first drive or second drive that ended in a field goal. But if you're pushing the ball downfield, air yards, it is going to impact yak. And this is a yak team, even without McCaffrey. Don't give me that reason. Has it affected the offense? Yes. But Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, Jennings, and Mason or Juice for checkdowns? Come on. That's more than enough offense. For the Cardinals and the Cardinals defense, that's more than enough. I don't think, and I've heard people say, oh, Brock is trying to kill the narrative that he's dink and dunk and he wants to show that he can throw downfield. If the shots are there, you take it. But it seems like he is staying with the deep routes too long. And he's foregoing, the intermediate and deep routes too long. There are ample opportunities for checkdowns. He's not taking them. I guarantee when McCaffrey comes back, he will take checkdowns more. And yes, McCaffrey is more dangerous in open space than Mason or Kyle Juszczyk. However, if it's there, take it. I'm not saying to throw 4 of those per drive. I'm saying it's okay sometimes to take what the defense gives you instead of pushing. Brock has nothing to prove. People still, after this game, saying, oh, is Brock really deserve 50, 55 million a year? Yes, he's going to get it. He's going to get it, and he does deserve it. The refinements of his game are the scrambling. Let's trade some scrambles for more decisive runs and scrambles upfield. North, south, actually not even south, just north, north, north. And being okay with the check down. He's evolving and growing as a passer. Even Kyle has said, there's nothing in the playbook that Brock can't do. I mean, he can't throw a 20, 25 yard out the way that Allen or Mahomes or other big arm quarterbacks can. He can't, right? He can get the ball everywhere on the field, except maybe 60 yards on a rope, and they're not looking for that. But they don't need to keep pushing 20, 30, 35, 40 in the air. If it's there and wide open, great. The underneath stuff helps you move the chains and then will in time open up the intermediate or deeper throws. Want more proof? Only one wide receiver screen all game. It was to Debo. Early in the game, one check down to Mason. That's it. And I'm not saying that if he completes 22 passes, 10 of them should be dinks and dunks. I'm not saying that, but it shouldn't be 2, 4, 5, 6 to get your fullback, your running back, even if it's Debo again, in open space against maybe a linebacker or one corner, one-on-one to make a bigger play. There is much more emphasis on the vertical passing game, and there should be more emphasis on the vertical passing game than the horizontal passing game. But the horizontal passing game, Kyle always, talks about he wanting to make teams, and other offensive coordinators too, wanting to make teams defend every blade of grass on the field, both width and depth. And even though they're not throwing, maybe the tunnel screens or the bubbles or checkdowns or swings, I mentioned earlier, you have those routes where Mason or Adebo is just kind of flaring out to the left and basically standing around the line of scrimmage to, I guess, keep that corner or that zone coverage person there and maybe free up something in that vicinity or behind him. Or if that receiver bites and pushes it downfield, you have a nice check down option. So you can still test and spread the field without throwing to the short areas is basically what I'm getting at. But this offense is not actually distributing the ball in a diverse enough manner around the field as it was last year and Brock's first year. And as we mentioned, play action way down. And play action can open up anything. Deep shot over the top, or with play action, deep shot over the top, the intermediate crosses, something short. It was disappointing. And again, I've always said, and I will say, I applaud the want and the desire to push. But this offense, I don't think, needs to push downfield as much as it is. Certainly do it. But I think they can dial back. And I don't think that's necessary. Like, there's no burner, right? Ayuk's not a burner. Debo, not really. Maybe Cowing, whenever the hell he gets in. Pearsall, who knows? Jennings for sure isn't. Kittle, not really anymore. Certainly not Juice. Not McCaffrey when he's healthy. They have enough players that can win matchups. Zone, one-on-one, a little iffy sometimes. But go to the staples, go to the bread and butter, go to what they excel at, and they excel at yards after catch. And that generally means short to intermediate passes, not trying to keep pushing the ball downfield. Now let's stop talking about the passing game because I think I'm going to give myself a migraine. Listen, both running games by the numbers were strong. Mason went 14 times for 89 yards as a team, 26 for 153. Here's the problem. 26 total rushes. Brock threw it 35 times. And you can't even say, well, it was the end of the game. They had to play catch up because they were down by a point. There's only 2 passes there that last drive, guys. Was it what? A completion to Kittle, and then Brock got hit and tipped and intercepted. That is not the formula. Those numbers have to be flipped. 35 runs, 26, 28, 29, 30 passes at the most. I don't have the numbers and I should have gotten it, but it bears out the Niners record under Brock, and I think under Kyle in general, significantly higher win percentage when they throw 30 times or less than when they do it 30 times or more. Now, if you want to say the Heat has something to do with the running game and Mason only getting 14 carries, maybe he got gassed, that's fine. So there were 26 carries total. I think Rendo had about 5. Debo might have had 2. And Purdy had like 3 or 4 on your scrambles. But Mason should have been close to 20. And again, the fumble happened 6 minutes ago in the fourth quarter. They could have fed him more earlier on. They could have fed Guarendo. They could have fed, God forbid, Patrick Taylor. He was fresh. I mean, he's got to be sweating through his uniform just standing there on the sidelines, even with like that cool water mist thing, running over players. But he was fresh to run the ball. Another 5 yard. When you're up, Kyle, you can... Sure, you can salt it away and push the envelope to win by scoring more points, right? But it doesn't have to come by being pass heavy. It doesn't have to come by relying on the pass more so when you're a running team. I go back to the first Chiefs Super Bowl. They're down 24-20 near midfield. That final drive, and there was around 2 minutes to go. They needed a touchdown. There wasn't 30 seconds left in the goddamn game. That final drive, 4 straight passes. And yes, Jimmy missed Emmanuel Sanders on that bomb. Rather throw it too deep than too short and get intercepted. But did not run the ball. They had every opportunity with that amount of time to still have their full offense at their disposal, but Kyle goes pass. Pass. 4 passes, sorry. The Niners do not, I don't think, ever need to throw it 35 times to beat Arizona, especially when you get a goddamn special teams touchdown. We may never see the blocked field goal return for a touchdown again in our lifetime, the way this special teams goes. They got 7 there and still could only muster 16 total points otherwise and only 1 offensive touchdown. For the Cardinals, Connor was a beast in the second half, 19 for 86 yards. Murray went 7 for 83 as a team. Same 26 rushes for 168 yards and a touchdown. If you want to play the whole game, well, if you take away, Murray's 50-yard run on the first drive, he was 6 for 33 yards, which is around his average of 41 yards per game. Still 5 yards a carry, and the team still would have been 25 for $118, which is still nearly 5 yards a carry. So they still would have been over 100, 15 yards. Outside of that one big run, but it does count, the Niners' run defense played well, especially in the first half and through the first 2.5 quarters. Then in the fourth quarter, John Connor essentially takes over. 51 yards on the ground in the fourth. Only 9 yards in the first half. Whatever adjustments that the Cardinals made on offense, Sorensen and the defense did not make in the second half. And I still think you have 12 minutes to make adjustments, and that's even less than that, like walking to the locker room, walking back, warming up. I think halftime adjustments are overblown to a point. But something happened. Something changed. Nick Bosa came out and said, we're watching film. We're feeling prepared. They're giving us some different looks. And that doesn't mean in the second half, probably from the jump, from the beginning of the game, because he didn't specify first half or second half. They're giving us some different looks than what we've seen, and we have to be able to adjust to that. That is a bit damning. That is on Sorensen and Staley and the staff to be able to be flexible enough to adjust to what the offense is doing. Again, like the Ram game, like the Super Bowl, great first half. So it's not a Sorensen thing. It's a Sorensen and Wilkes thing. And maybe it's a player thing getting complacent, or just a bad luck thing, or just an offense out executing a defense thing. Again, it can happen. Just because the Niners are a very good team, or at least on paper, on the back of their jerseys, doesn't mean they have to win every single snap. But you would like them to win the majority of the snaps, even if it's 52% of them. And you would like to think that they would win the snaps that matter most as you head into and through the fourth quarter. So now we talked about, defensive stuff, next point, odd defensive decision. So there was no 5-man defensive line from the Niners until the 2-minute warning at the end of the game, where you knew the Cardinals were going to run the ball 3 straight times to preserve field goal range, to make the Niners kill their 3 timeouts and kick the field goal to go up 1. No 5-man lines up until then. Why not? Why not? All right, it's working in the first half. Whatever you're doing, run blitzing, 4-man, whatever was going on in the first half, it was working. Third quarter, not as much. Fourth quarter, not at all. Why are you not going to a down formation that has helped you and other teams in the past stop the run? Yes, you may sacrifice something on the back end receiving wise, but Harrison didn't have a huge game. McBride didn't have a huge game. I think Mike Wilson Jr. might have had the best game out of all the receivers. I'd have to double check that. Meanwhile, Arizona was intermittently playing 6-man lines, 6 down linemen. Now, whether it was 4 linemen or 5 linemen and a linebacker, they had 6 on the line, 2 corners, 2 safeties, and 1 linebacker. Did not play it all game. Let's not misunderstand, but played it enough that helped stymie the Niners' running game at times. And I believe Kyle does not give Brock the ability to audible out either at all or really all that much, to audible to some sort of quick throw or a screen, something, tight end release, fullback release, whatever it may be, something to make the defense pay for being that aggressive. And where is the play action? 6-man D line. You should be audibleizing to play. You should audible to play action pass, because you're going to have 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 crash the line to stop the run. That's on Kyle. He's going to see more of that. He saw plenty 5-man lines played against the Rams. The Rams employ that. Other teams have, and the Chiefs were doing some of that in the Super Bowl and run blitzing at the right time that took the running game away. But if you are an offensive guru and genius, you need to have your counter. What's your counter for that? Or what's your counter when you see it? All right, you have a certain play call on, get out of it. Get to something that can beat it. Now, Isaac Yiadom is going to get a lot of heat for letting up that 4th down reception on Marvin Harrison Jr. That was the only reception he let up all game. But if you know you're sending 7 and you're coming with nearly an all-out blitz, wouldn't you want your number one corner? Like your corners are manned up. And I don't remember how many receivers they had out there. If they had a safety on a third receiver, if they had, their nickel in. Nickel cornerback. Wouldn't you want Ward on Marvin Harrison Jr. just from like an awareness standpoint? Ward did not have a great game, but if it's money time, game on the line, and Sorensen, you're coming, you switch it around. I don't think Ward just likes to play aside. Remember last year, he kind of followed DK Metcalf around, and we're going to get to that in the Seahawks preview. Why not? And Murray made a nice throw. Harrison, a nice adjustment. They know that they had an outbreaking route, and Yiadom wasn't on him enough to get there to break it up. Overall, Nick, where was the pressure on Kyler Murray? 1 sack. I think only like 7 total pressures. And this is a team that Washington the week before sacked Murray 4 times. You didn't bring... You shouldn't wait for just 4th down with maybe the game hanging in the balance to bring heat on Kyler Murray. You just shouldn't. This is, again, this bend but don't break defense, which they kind of relegated themselves to this past week against Arizona, fell back to form. And again, just because it's working in the first half does not mean it's going to be working in the second half. There just needs to be more multiple looks on defense and more pressure. The front 4 is not getting there, especially against a mobile quarterback. And you want to say, all right, well, it's a catch-22. You send a blitz and Kyler Murray gets out of it. It's going to be a big game. Very true. But if you also get there, a sack, knocking the ball down, an interception, that's a big reward because you're not getting there with 4. You're not getting there with 4. And Murray was only, a shade over 50%, on the day also. So pass completion percentage wise, he wasn't deadly accurate. And I'm just going to throw this out there. And it's applied actually to two of the last 3 defensive coordinators. For a head coach like Kyle that is so hesitant and almost reluctant to play rookies unless he has to, like Dominic Puny, had to step in because Burford and Feliciano were hurt at the time. And then he ran with it. They're working in Malik Mustafa at safety, more so like this past game because Hufanga was hurt, but had to play a little bit more to start the season because Hufanga was hurt at the time. Got Renardo Green on the field last week. I think he saw 2 snaps this week. Inconsistent. But for a coach that is historically reticent to play rookies, why are you okay with the rookie play caller on defense? Why are you okay with a rookie DC? Because I guarantee if Kyle was just the head coach and not the offensive coordinator, there is no fucking way he would hand over play calling duties to a first-time rookie OC. No way. It was safe. It was the safe pick because Nick knew the scheme, just like DeMeco. And DeMeco's first half of his rookie season was not good. Let's not romanticize about it. Was not good statistically and grew into it. And that's not to say that Nick Sorensen can't. And starting slow has been a Niner thing 2 of the past 3 years. And even last year, they started out 5-0 before they slipped back to 5-3. But this is a veteran defense, veteran talented defense with some young players sprinkled in. Why are we not handing this over to an old hand on defense that can run some sort of an amalgamation of what you want to run for cover 3, but bringing in some principles of his own, whoever this DC is, to maximize the talent and the players that you have at every level? Things are going this way. Sorensen's going to be gone at the end of the season. What I think we're all hoping for as Niner fans is that the Jets completely shit the bed. Saleh gets fired and he gets brought back as DC. Because at least that would be the experienced DC, even though he'll be away from calling defensive plays for the past 4 seasons. But he's familiar and comfortable, but at least experienced, right? Had 4 years under Kyle? All right, so let's stay negative. Reasons for pessimism, because what we watched against Minnesota, what we watched against the Rams, and what we watched against the Cardinals. The Niners can only beat teams in the AFC East. Can't win in the NFC West, can't win in the NFC. 0-2 in the West, 0-3 in the NFC overall. They beat a 2-win team in the Jets, and they might even be worse than that given how they looked against Denver. And they came back against Minnesota, but Aaron Rodgers is not looking good, and they beat a 1-win team in New England. They lost to a 2-win team in the Cardinals and a 1-win team in the Rams, and of course lost to the undefeated Vikings. And there's no shame in that loss. They are finding ways to lose to bad teams. They are not finding ways to beat bad teams. And even Bosa came out and said it, and Ward and Warner, Kyle, like, we have to find a way to win these games. I think, was it Brock or Warner during the press conference said, like, last year we had to figure out how to win grimy, how to win ugly games. And that's an important trait because not every game is going to be a blowout either way. Like, you have to look bad or sloppy doing it, but still find a way to do it. But they're finding ways to lose against these teams. They're finding ways to wilt in the second half. They're finding ways to not close the door, to absolutely not close out a team in the fourth quarter, offensively or defensively. And special teams, I mean, as questionable as the special teams has been, now you have, you get a special teams touchdown, then you lose your kicker. Like, they can't, I'm not going to say the season is cursed like 2020, but boy, can they not catch a break with certain things, especially injuries. Yetur Gross-Matos on the D-line is now out for 4 to 8 weeks. The Hufanga injury, Moody's going to be out for multiple weeks. Hopefully by the time, during this recording, they would have signed a kicker. I don't know. And where are the easy wins on the schedule, guys? Let's stay pessimistic. They're at Seattle, home for KC, home for Dallas, then a bye. At Tampa, at home for Seattle, at Green Bay, at Buffalo, at home for Chicago, at home for the Rams, at Miami, who will probably have 2 at that point, at home for Detroit, and at Arizona, who beat them already. What games can you point to right now with the way the team has looked now? Not, 6 weeks or 4 weeks from now, and you're like, oh, I feel good going into Green Bay or Buffalo or Miami or Detroit coming in. With the way this team looks now, where would you put $1,000 in the Niners winning a game? You want to say this week because backs are against the wall and they really, really, really need to have it? And Seattle has only looked good against bad teams. We're going to get there. But the games that were wins on the schedule, Patriots, at Los Angeles, at home against Arizona, did not happen, right? Seattle at home, maybe Chicago at home, that team's going to probably continue to get better. Rams beat them once already. Cardinals beat them once already. I mean, the Niners aren't going to lose the next 12 games. But I don't feel particularly great about any one game moving forward. Right now, that can change. Now, let's try to be optimistic. Ayuk finally broke out. 8 for 147. In a way, hollow yards, because none really led to touchdowns. Maybe he had a reception or 2 on the 1 touchdown drive. Great. But did not have that huge, significant impact play that helped the Niners push and extend the lead. Mentioned before, Niners have started slow the past 2 out of 3 years. Kyle said today or yesterday, our slow starts in the past aren't going to help us this year. Just because they've done it before does not mean they're going to do it again. Different team, different philosophy, different defensive coordinator. It's not like, oh yeah, they're going to start slow. They'll get it. Just like the Bengals, they'll start slow and they'll get it. Well, the Bengals are 1-4 now and they're essentially done. Too much talent to not put it together, right? Like the 5 games, yes, they do start slow. You'd have to imagine Sorensen is going to get better each game versus plateauing or getting worse. You would have to imagine. And if he does start to regress or it doesn't look great, then at some point Staley's going to be brought in if he hasn't been already. Or they bring another defensive consultant from the outside to help shore things up. There's too much talent, and the coaches, Sorensen aside because he's an unknown, but the coaching staff in general is too good to keep playing this way consistently. They're very inconsistent. Look good against the Jets, looked okay against Minnesota, a couple brain farts, the Jefferson touchdown, turnovers. Looked good for a half against the Rams, looked good against New England, looked good for a half against the Cardinals. Inconsistent. Have they put together 4 strong consecutive quarters yet? I don't think so. But there's too much talent for that to not happen, for them to just not luck into it one game, right? And at some point, they're going to get McCaffrey back and Kalia Davis and Dre Greenlaw and Ricky Pearsall at different points in the season. Are these players going to cure all ills? No. Are they going to get worse with these players? No, of course not. They're going to help to some degree. McCaffrey should help with some, red zone conversions, should help with maybe extending drives on third down, should help with some checkdowns. Kalia Davis, if healthy, could help with the run defense. Greenlaw as well. And Pearsall just giving another option and a dynamic one on offense. And Cowing, who was out the last 2 games with a shoulder injury, whenever the hell he gets involved in the offense, could give them another dimension in terms of speed and agility. And all that we've talked about, a 2-3 start, everything that we've said negatively, optimistically, or somewhere in between, all that being said, the past 57 minutes, they still have a chance to go into Seattle on Thursday night and get the lead in the NFC West. It's assuming Arizona loses their game. Otherwise, they'll be second in the NFC West. They still have a chance to tie Seattle. Seattle, thank you, Giants. Talking about how ironic. The Niners get a punt block return for a touchdown and lose. The Giants get a punt block return for a touchdown and win. Granted, the time of that score was late in the fourth quarter. That got them up by 9. Under 2 minutes to go. But listen, and even if they lose, I don't want to get to there yet, but the game is for the NFC West lead or a tie at 3-3, because the best Arizona, if they win, they're 3-3. Niners are 3-3. Seattle's 3-3. The Rams will probably get their stuff together eventually, but they're a 1-4 team. Yes, they beat the Niners, but a 1-4 team. Seattle's upcoming schedule for a third place team last year, it's not easy. Niners at Atlanta, at home for Buffalo and the Rams, at Seattle, at home for Arizona, at the Jets, at the Cardinals, at home for the Packers, at home for the Vikings, at the Bears, at the Rams. 4 of their final 6 games are on the road. And this is a team that's shown they can beat bad teams, but not good teams, just like the Niners. So let's transition to the preview. Niners at Seattle Thursday night on Amazon. For some ridiculous reason, the Niners are a 3-point favorite, which means if this game was played in Santa Clara, they'd be a 6-point favorite. The over-under is 47.5. Again, for whoever's out there gambling. Let's just go through it. Seattle beat Denver week 1, rookie Bo Nix's first start. Beat New England week 2. New England's not as good as what people thought they might have been after winning in Cincinnati in week 1. Beat Miami with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Congratulations. Lost to Detroit by 2 scores on Monday night a couple weeks ago, and lost at home to the Giants, who were without Malik Nabers and Devin Singletary. I will go so far as to say The Niners season is not over if they lose this game. The best chance that they have getting into the playoffs is winning the West. And I think the way this team is right now, they probably max out at 10 wins, meaning 10-7, which is 4 more losses. Hell, they might be 9-8. It's just because it's not looking good right now. I think they max out at 10 wins. I'm not saying they will, but their ceiling is 10 wins. And that could be good enough to win the West. It's not over if they lose this game. Yes, Seattle would have a 2.5 game lead on them. They get Seattle again. Even though we looked at the Niners schedule and said, oh, where are the easy wins? What do you feel confident about? What do you feel confident about with Seattle? What do you feel confident about overall with Seattle? Who they beat, who they lost to, and who's on their schedule? Losing at Seattle certainly makes it more difficult, especially because now you're 0-3 in the division and 0-4 in the conference, which means you absolutely have to win every remaining NFC West game and probably every remaining NFC game. Number 1 seed's gone. The Vikings are up by 3.5 games. Could they collapse? Could Darnold get hurt and it just go to shit? Of course. But you're not thinking number 1 seed. And the number 2 seed, it's still in play. It's the Redskins. The Commanders at 4-1. Yes, they've looked good, but they still have to play Dallas twice and Philly twice. I don't remember if they played the Giants once or not. I think they did already. Washington is not going to be like some juggernaut 11-12 win team. They're going to come back down to earth. The South is jumbled with the Bucks and the Saints and the Falcons. So even with a loss to Seattle, the number 2 seed could still be in play. Certainly the number 3 seed and certainly the number 4 if they wind up being 9-8 or 10-7 and winning the West. Seattle's going to come at them with some offense. Geno Smith, I think, is leading the league in passing in terms of yards. DK Metcalf is at receivers having a really good start to the season. Tyler Lockett is kind of giving way to Jackson Smith and Jigba in terms of the number 2 receiver, but a very formidable 3 wide receiver set. At running back, Kenneth Walker leads the team with 200 yards rushing. So that's basically 40 yards a game. And Zach Charbonnet has 167 yards, which is about 35 yards a game. But Walker is averaging 5.5 yards per carry. Walker and Charbonnet are big, strong running backs that are going to give the Niners problems. Offensively, Seattle's the number 7 offense, averaging 376 yards a game. They're the number 3 passing offense, 271 a game. 22nd running the ball at 105, and 11th in points scored, averaging 24.4 a game on defense. 10th overall, allowing 311. 7th against the pass, allowing 183. 20th against the run, allowing 128. And 18th in points allowed, 22.8. All right, in turnovers, let's just get this out of the way. Seattle's -3 in the turnover differential. The Niners are even at 0. Here's some commonalities for the Seahawks. In their 3 wins, they ran the ball 33, 36, and 23 times. In their 2 losses, 19 rushes and 11 rushes against the Giants. And the Giants teed off on Geno, sacking him 7 times. You would think you would want to hand the ball off more. And it was a close game. It's not like the Giants ran away with it. Seattle, knowing what the Niners have trouble with, which defensively is sort of everything, but certainly everything when you get into the second half, and definitely everything when you get into the fourth quarter, they're going to want to run the ball. They have an okay line, but they have 2 big, strong running backs that they're going to throw at San Francisco, and I guarantee you they run it more than 11 times. I guarantee you they run it more than 19 times, like they have in their 2 losses. I guarantee you they run it more than 25 times. If they get to 30, I don't know. They are going to be committed to running the ball. So the Niners have to be prepared for that. That's like the obvious. That's what the Niners don't do well, especially later on in the game. So you got to do that well, San Fran. Got to do that well, Nick Sorensen, D-line, Chris Kosorek, everybody committed to stopping the run. Make this team one-dimensional, because if they can get to Geno. Geno's been sacked 18 times in these 5 games, and the Niners have beaten Geno 4 straight times, getting at least 3 sacks in 3 of those games. I think one of those games they sacked him twice. Geno's thrown under 200 yards, 2 games, over, I think, 230, 235 in the other 2 games, including a playoff victory in Santa Clara against Seattle. Geno's been sacked 7 times by the Giants, 3 times by Detroit, 3 times by Miami, 3 times by New England, and twice by Denver. They should get at least 2 or 3 sacks. I'm not going to say, oh, the Giants sacked them 7 times, so the Niners will. Again, I haven't seen it. The D-line is more name than game. The Giants have a very good defensive line. Pass rush, much better than the Niners. But should they be able to get to Geno 3+ times? Sack-wise, yes. And significantly more pressures. Maybe 7 to 10 pressures. What we're hoping for. And if it's not coming with the front 4, you send 5. You send 6. Yes, Seattle has 3 good receivers and a very competent tight end in Noah Fant. But you can force Geno Smith into mistakes. He is throwing for a lot of yards because at least in 2 games, 3 games, they're not really running the ball all that much, and they do have weapons on the outside. Make Geno Smith beat you. Make Geno Smith make the right read consistently. Will he at times? Sure. But I think he's good to give 1 or 2 away against the 49ers secondary. I think if you can keep Seattle's only averaging 105 yards rushing a game, I'm going to bump that up because there's no way the Niners keep him under 105. You just know it's not going to happen, right? But you can keep him around or under 115, you got a good shot. Don't let them run to the 130, 145, 150 plus the way Arizona did. Granted, Geno has mobility when he wants to, but is more of a pocket passer certainly than Kyler Murray. So you don't have to worry about the dynamic scrambling and breaking the pocket. Geno did have 1 big run against the Giants toward the end of the game, but more of a kind of a broken play, and the coverage was well downfield, and he just took it up the sideline for, I think, 30 plus yards. Those plays are going to happen at times, but he's not going to consistently beat you with his legs. Like last year, will Charvarius Ward shadow DK Metcalf? Why not? Metcalf's having a good season, over 400 yards so far, averaging 84 yards per game. Biggest threat, then Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Tyler Lockett has been a thorn in the Niners' side for the past several years. A very good, now if he's becoming the number 3 or slot receiver, very dangerous player still. Offensively, Kyle, commit to 30 plus runs. It's a night game in Seattle, so it's not going to be 100 degrees. It's probably going to be 50 degrees. Think about that. Half the temperature. Commit to 30 or more runs and around 30 passes. Now, listen, the passes could be in the low 30s because this could be a shootout. Both defenses, the Niners defense isn't very good. Seattle's defense is top 10-ish in some things overall. Pretty good pass defense that is going to. Mike McDonald coming over from Baltimore, he saw what worked on Christmas night last year. He saw what worked in the Super Bowl. He's got the corners to challenge the Niners receivers. Niners receivers have to man up. Not like they're not tough guys. They are, but they need to prove that they can beat Seattle's secondary. Listen, Detroit lit it up. Detroit has good receivers. They have a good tight end. They have a good running back. Like, their offense in some ways comparable to the 49ers in terms of the dynamics, in terms of the explosive plays, right? In terms of the skill players. So by that comparison, the Niners should be able to do some of the things that Detroit did. But they have to be ready for Seattle to be playing an aggressive style, very similar to how Arizona started out, right? Arizona was that first quarter challenging Brock, challenging the receivers. Big reason why they went 3 and out, in addition to not running the goddamn ball. But establish the run. Even if it's a shootout, it could be a shootout with the running game helping you to score. Shootout does not mean passing game only. And for Brock, be decisive. Whatever it is, be decisive. You want to push the ball downfield? Okay, I would scale that back a little bit. But be decisive in terms of the reads. Take the short stuff sooner. Decide to run sooner. He's going to scramble. He's going to be good for 1 or 2 of those scramble around and buy time. And I think that the Seattle Seahawks, I have to go back and look at the injury report, are beaten up on the defensive line. that they had some DNs out last game, some that may be questionable for this game. And on a short week, that's obviously not going to help things. I don't have the full injury report. I apologize, but reading some stuff last night, it seemed like the D-line was a concern for Seattle. This is a back against the wall game for San Francisco. I said it's not over if they go to 2-4. If they get to 2-4, I guarantee you social media everywhere is going to be blow it up, fire Kyle, fire John, fire Sorensen, bench Brock. When's McCaffrey coming back? God knows what else. Get Yadam out, put Renardo Green in. Campbell should come out anyway. D. Winter should probably be getting more playing time because Campbell cannot cover. His passer rating is absurd. I think he's allowed 24 receptions on 28 passes this season. Terrible. More of an 80s and 90s run stopping linebacker, but they're not stopping the run that well. And he's going to be a liability in coverage. So put somebody else in, or at least rotate. And Winters, I think, got 26 or 28 snaps, which is a career high last week. Maybe that's trending as a thing to come. I do not like playing in Seattle in general. I really don't like playing in Seattle. Not like I'm strapping anything up and playing. I don't like playing in Seattle at night. You know the 12th man's going to be into it. The crowd, they have a 1-game lead on Seattle. They can get a 2.5-game lead on San Francisco. They can get a 2.5-game lead on them with a win. I think I am PTSD scarred from the whole Legion of Boom era where the Niners under Kaepernick and others had Alex Smith had no chance going up to Seattle. It's not nearly the same place. I actually saw went with some friends to Seattle for like a quasi vacation, saw a Washington Huskies game against Notre Dame and a Seahawk game at Lumen Field. That was, I think, before Legion of Boom. Crowd gets into it. Raucous environment, super loud. The decibels are going to be high. The Niners have won there the past two games, and the past 2 games have been night games, Thanksgiving night, and I think another, was it a Thursday night or Sunday night game? But one there, I think one was 31-13, 21-13. Don't quote me on that. But the Niners have won there with Brock the last 2 seasons. I'm taking Seattle. Until the Niners, and on a short week, and I know it's good, turn the page, put the Cardinal game behind San Francisco, get back out there and play Seattle. And they've had Geno Smith's number the past 4 times they've played. I just don't feel great right now. And I think this will be, if you want to call 27-24 a shootout, that would exceed the over-under of 47.5. The Niners are giving 3. I would take the 3. I have Seattle winning 27-24 and prepare for the shitstorm. Hopefully I'm wrong. I've actually picked Seattle the past 2 years at home to beat San Francisco. So part of me is like, shit, do you want to play the superstitious card? Let me pick them again, because the last 2 times I did in Seattle, the Niners have won. That's not the reason why I'm doing it, but I am superstitious. So fingers crossed that this pick helps the Niners, as stupid as that sounds. But I know a lot of us are superstitious. I will take Seattle 27-24 until, and then the Chiefs and Cowboys are coming up. The Niners need this game. They don't have to beat them by 30, but they need to show that they can play 4 quarters, consistent offense, mix the run and the pass better, and get stops when they need to throughout the game to feel like they have any chance next week against Kansas City and against the Dallas team who dug deep and won at Pittsburgh. Those are going to be 2 big games. The Chiefs game, as much as you want that win because of a Super Bowl revenge thing, it's an AFC game. Doesn't matter as much. Seattle and Dallas matter so much more, division and NFC. If they can get to 4-4 going into the bye, everything that we've seen thus far, that would be a win. But the way I'm picking it, Seattle by 3, that's going to mean that the Niners are going to have to win their next 2 at home to get to 4-4. We shall see. That concludes the 49ers podcast for today. There will be a reaction show on either Friday or Saturday to the Seattle game. Big game. I know we're all going to be into it. It's not necessarily must win for San Francisco, but it's kind of close, especially knowing who they have immediately upcoming on the schedule before they get to the bye and before they're presumably back to full health with CMC and others coming back to the roster. Hope I'm wrong. Really, really hope I'm wrong. Until now, and we speak again, enjoy whatever you are doing. Enjoy the game. Stay happy, healthy, safe. We'll talk soon. Take care.